Welcome to the official podcast of Vienna Shadows, a secret society uncovering Vienna's hidden mysteries. Lean back and enjoy the show.
Picture this. You are standing in the grand ballroom of a palace in 1920s Vienna.
Oh, setting the scene right away.
Yeah, exactly. You hear the faint, echoing strains of a Strauss waltz. There's crystal gleaming under the chandeliers, the rustle of silk, the smell of roasted coffee drifting in from the cafes down the street.
Right, the absolute pinnacle of European high culture.
Exactly. It feels perfectly normal. But then you look a little closer at the architecture holding up those vaulted ceilings, and the geometry is just slightly wrong. You realize the aristocrat dancing next to you is staring at something you can't see, and their jaw is twitching rhythmically.
Just forming syllables of a language that hasn't been spoken on Earth for millennia.
Yes. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a massive, incredibly detailed game master's guide for the tabletop role-playing game Vienna Shadows.
What's fascinating here is how jarring that juxtaposition is. I mean, you have this ultimate, recognizable symbol of civilized elegance, the Austrian Empire crashing headfirst into mind-bending cosmic horror.
It is so well done. And our mission today is to figure out how this game so brilliantly twists real-world Habsburg history into an occult nightmare.
Right. We're going to explore the hidden lore, figure out how the unique tabletop mechanics actually enforce that dread at the table, and walk through a thrilling sample adventure.
And honestly, whether you are a game master prepping your next campaign, or just a history buff who loves a dark twist, this material completely changes how you look at European history.
It really forces you to look at documented historical eccentricities, like the strange architecture, the obsessions of the emperors, their physical anomalies, and see them not as quirks of history, but as, well, symptoms of a desperate, centuries-long cosmic war.
So to really understand the absolute chaos of 1920s Vienna in this setting, we kind of have to start by looking backwards.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to look at the emperors who ruled this city for over 600 years, the House of Habsburg.
Right, because history books tell us they were one of the most powerful political dynasties to ever exist.
Hey.
I mean, they ruled empires where the sun never set.
They did. But the game introduces this concept called the shadow truth, which gives them a totally different job description.
Wait, so what were they actually doing?
In the lore of Vienna Shadows, the Habsburgs were not primarily political monarchs. They were the self-appointed wardens of the European ley lines.
Oh, wow. So the politics were just a cover.
Basically, yeah. Their entire political empire, all the wars and the strategic marriages, was essentially a front, a byproduct of their true duty, which was keeping cosmic horrors at bay.
Okay, I want to pause there because the concept of a ley line gets thrown around in fantasy a lot, like all the time. How does this game define it?
It's a great question. Think of the ley lines in this universe not as glowing magical rivers, but as fault lines in the fabric of space-time.
Like tectonic plates almost.
Yes. And Vienna sits squarely on top of the largest one in Europe, called the Danube Rift.
The Danube Rift. Okay.
It is quite literally a tear in reality that leaks psychic radiation and allows entities from the outer voids to press against our dimension. So the Habsburgs saw themselves as the jailers holding the door shut.
And no one embodies that hidden duty better than Emperor Rudolf II.
Oh, absolutely.
Because historically, Rudolf was famous in the late 1500s for moving his court to Prague and basically ignoring his empire to focus on, like, alchemy and the occult.
He had that massive Kunstkammer, right?
Yeah, the Cabinet of Curiosities. History remembers him as this eccentric collector of weird art. But how does the Shadow Truth reframe him?
It positions Rudolf II as a desperate, brilliant researcher. He wasn't just collecting weird art.
What was he doing?
He was trying to decode what the game calls the language of the first ones. That famous Cabinet of Curiosities was actually a highly classified inventory of dormant biological anomalies and alien technology.
Okay, let's unpack this because this leads to my absolute favorite detail in the entire guide.
I think I know where you're going with this.
When the Habsburg court eventually moved back to Vienna, they brought these dangerous relics with them. But all this exposure to the occult over centuries came with a biological price.
Yep.
I'm talking about the Habsburg jaw.
Ah, yes. The mandibular prognathism, a very real, documented medical condition resulting from their intense intermarrying.
Right. It's in all their royal portraits. But the game takes this historical fact and turns it into pure body horror.
It really does.
It's like finding out your family's history of bad eyesight is actually because your eyes are mutating to see fourth-dimensional ghosts.
That is a deeply unsettling analogy, but entirely accurate to the lore here.
Right.
The game explains that this distinct jawline wasn't just a genetic quirk. It was a cosmic defect.
From what, exactly?
Well, the Habsburgs made forced pacts with an entity known as the King in Yellow, or Haster, to gain the power needed to seal the rifts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the physical toll was that the skulls of the imperial lineage subtly warped over generations to accommodate an additional vestigial sensory organ in the lower jaw.
A literal new organ. That is horrifying.
An organ designed to perceive the true colors of the outer voids.
Which sounds awful on its own, but the implications for a TTRPG set in the 1920s are just massive.
Huge, because by the time the players are walking the streets of Vienna, certain surviving aristocrats still carry this genetic defect.
Oh, right, because the empire just fell.
Exactly. And their biology makes them highly susceptible to telepathic hijacking by these entities. They are walking biological antennas just waiting for a signal.
That is so creepy, which I guess logically brings us to the physical tools the emperors used to manage this crisis.
Yes. The stasis anchors.
Right, because my immediate thought while reading this was about causality. If the Habsburgs were the wardens holding reality together, what happens when they're gone?
Right. What happens next?
By the 1920s, the Austro-Hungarian Empire has been shattered by the Great War. The emperor is gone. So who is guarding the vault?
The terrifying answer is no one is guarding it. The wardens have abandoned their post.
Oh.
Yeah, and this takes us directly into the imperial treasury in the Hofburg Palace, the Schatzkammer. The guide details how relics, like the Holy Lance, the Lance of Longinus.
Which is a real thing, right?
It is. But in the game, these are not mere religious symbols. They are the actual stasis anchors.
I know the real-world Holy Lance is sitting in a museum in Vienna right now. So how does it function mechanically in the game's lore?
Well, in the game's Mythos Fusion, the lance was forged from meteoric iron and alien alloys. Generations of emperors used the precise vibrational frequency of that lance to physically pin the psychic bleeding of the Danube Rift.
Wow.
It's much like driving a nail through a torn canvas.
But today, in the 1920s setting, the empire has fallen.
Exactly. The lance is sitting behind ordinary museum glass, totally unmaintained. The frequency is slipping, which means reality itself is beginning to unmoor in Vienna.
And the lance is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. I was reading the section on the agate bowl, which is another real artifact.
Oh, the agate bowl is wild.
The text says it has this natural inscription in the stone that looks like the word Christ. But the game's mechanics for this item are insane. I couldn't really wrap my head around the mechanism. How does a stone bowl act as a telescope for time?
It requires a horrific catalyst, honestly.
Go on.
The bowl is a natural extra-dimensional lens, but to activate it, you have to fill it with the spinal fluid of a psychic medium.
Ew. Okay.
The fluid acts as a refractive material. When the light of the room hits that specific fluid inside the agate, the patterns in the stone physically shift.
To show what?
They reveal the multi-sphered visage of Yog-Sothoth, an entity that exists across all time and space.
So it grants the user the ability to foresee the future or, see across dimensions.
Yes, but the cost is permanent blindness to the physical world.
Of course there's a cost.
Yeah, the user's eyes just burn out because human optic nerves cannot process the geometry of a higher dimension.
That is so dark. Which brings us to the Schönbrunn Palace Labyrinth.
Oh, the environmental storytelling here is fantastic.
It is. Game Answers can use the actual tourist map of Vienna as a literal dungeon.
Exactly.
The guide mentions these suppressed 18th century documents called the Eichsbuchel manuscripts that reveal the palace gardens are actually a massive, living, geometric rune. But how does a hedge maze actually contain an ancient god?
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a brilliant concept regarding kinetic energy.
Okay, kinetic energy.
The labyrinth forces tourists and pedestrians to walk in highly specific mathematical patterns.
Because it's a maze.
Right. And that collective continuous movement generates biological friction, which creates a subtle ambient energy field.
So wait, every tourist wandering through the maze is unknowingly powering a cosmic battery.
Exactly. They are powering a containment grid that keeps another dynamic entity, Shub-Niggurath, slumbering deep beneath the Tyrolean Alps.
That is wild.
The architecture of the city itself is the cage. The tourist attractions are the bars of the cell.
That completely flips the script on historical tourism. but it also creates an incredibly dangerous power vacuum, right? Because if the literal architecture of the city is a failing cage, someone is going to try and grab the keys. And that leads us into the secret shadow conflict known as the War of the Robes.
Right. With the empire dismantled, the guide presents 4 main cult factions trying to seize these slipping anchors.
And what is so compelling is that these factions are not just random bad guys.
Not at all.
They represent a spectrum of ideological reactions to the dread of a fallen empire. So let's break those down.
Sure.
On one extreme, we have the Black Robes. They are essentially anarchists in this occult landscape, right? They celebrate the fall of the monarchy.
Yeah, they view the old empire as an unnatural prison. Their ultimate goal is to completely shatter the stasis anchors in the Hofburg.
Just break them all.
Yep. They want to unleash all the suppressed centuries of psychic trauma and plunge the grand boulevards of the city into permanent, chaotic madness. It is total, unadulterated nihilism.
Wow. Then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there are the Golden Robes.
Right, the traditionalists.
This faction is made up of bitter, dispossessed aristocrats, conservative politicians, and old military officers.
And what do they want?
They want to recover Rudolph II's old alchemical journals and use the agate bowl. Their grand plan is to foresee the political future, violently crush the current socialist administration, known historically as Red Vienna, and install an occult puppet monarch to restore absolute imperial control.
So you have chaos on one side and totalitarian control on the other. Caught in the middle are the Crimson Robes.
And they're actually fractured into 2 camps, right?
Exactly. The main branch has retreated entirely into religious fanaticism. They are obsessively transcribing the final mad diary entries of Emperor Franz Joseph I.
Why his diary?
Because they believe his mutated Habsburg biology allowed him to transcribe the cosmic scream of the dying century right before he died.
That is a great name for a diary. And the splinter group, the Crimson Cracked Branch.
They are trying to safeguard the remaining aristocratic scions, the ones who carry that genetic jaw defect.
To stop them from being used by the Golden Robes as biological antennas to channel the void.
Correct. But they also believe the old empire's occult architecture was the only thing keeping the city safe from total cosmic erasure.
So what does this all mean for the players? Because looking at these factions, I was trying to figure out who I would want my players to align with, and I realized...
there are no traditional good guys here.
Exactly. You can't just pick a side and feel heroic. Even the supposedly protective Cracked Branch is essentially fighting to maintain a tyrannical occult architecture that oppresses the city.
That is a testament to the sophisticated design of the source material. It impartially mirrors the genuine political and social reality of post-World War I Europe.
Yeah, it really does.
You have factions desperately clinging to a broken, oppressive past, and factions plunging headfirst into terrifying, unfiltered chaos.
And the players are just stuck in the middle.
Right, the game forces players to navigate these grim political and cosmic realities without endorsing any of them. It ensures the setting feels perilous and morally ambiguous.
Well, with all these terrifying factions running around, how is a regular player character supposed to survive this? Let's look at how the mechanics actually reflect this dread at the tabletop.
So do it.
The Vienna Shadows Guide uses a D6 roll-under system based on 4 core attributes. You have strength, intellect, charisma, and perception.
Very streamlined.
Yeah, but I'm so used to D20 systems where characters scale up and feel like superheroes. Why use a D6 system here?
Well, a D6 system with a base score of 3 means you only succeed if you roll beneath your attribute value on a 6-sided die.
Why?
It is intentionally brutal and fast. It strips away the illusion of high fantasy invincibility.
Right, you aren't fighting gods with a sword.
Exactly. It keeps the narrative moving rapidly, but makes players feel small, vulnerable, and constantly at the mercy of overwhelming odds. The mechanics get out of the way of the storytelling while reinforcing the physical frailty of the characters.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the guide introduces highly specific mechanics that tie directly into the Habsburg lore.
Oh, the custom mechanics are great.
First is Imperial Majesty. This acts as a charisma, or intellect probe. When a character encounters a relic, or a cosmic entity that was originally bound by the old Habsburg magic, they can attempt to invoke the residual authority of the crown.
You are literally using ancient courtly phrases to command the room.
And if a player succeeds,
The entity is momentarily frozen in an aura of artificial stasis. It grants the party a -1 difficulty modifier for their next tactical action.
So it actually helps to act like an arrogant noble.
Yes. This provides a tangible mechanical incentive for players to engage with the deep history of the setting, to act like the wardens in a moment of crisis.
Well, the drawback is the Carcosa resonance, which is a sanity threat. I need you to explain this one because the mechanics of it sound agonizing for the player.
Oh, it's brutal. This applies to player characters who have aristocratic ancestry, or anyone who spends too much time lingering in the deep vaults of the Hofburg, absorbing that psychic radiation. The GM asks for a perception check. If you roll a 6, which is a critical failure in this system, your jaw structure painfully physically shifts.
Oh.
You temporarily perceive the world exactly as it exists under the yellow sky of Carcosa.
Just imagine sitting at the table and your GM tells you that your character is physically struggling to speak because their mouth is reshaping itself.
It's such good body horror.
And you take 1 point of sanity damage and you suffer a +1 difficulty modifier to all interpersonal communication checks.
Why? Because your speech physically becomes slurred and rhythmic. You are literally speaking the language of the void. It makes it harder to talk to normal people.
It forces the player to embody the corruption of the city. To see exactly how all of this comes together, the guide provides a phenomenal 3-act sample adventure arc.
Oh, the Emperor's Last Waltz.
Yes. The narrative escalation in this adventure is fantastic. It starts localized and rapidly spirals into a citywide chase. Act 1 is called The Bleeding Lands.
Right, the museum incident.
Yeah, the investigators get a call from a panicked archivist at the Hofburg Treasury. The Holy Lance has begun to sweat a cold, black, incandescent grease that is corroding its velvet display case.
So evocative.
A museum guard touches it, immediately goes blind, and starts babbling in a courtly, archaic Spanish dialect from the 16th century. I assume this is because the lance's frequency is failing and it's channeling the mind of Rudolph II.
Precisely. If the players investigate the meteoric iron of the lance, they discover it is violently vibrating in resonance with an awakening gravity source beneath the city.
The anchor is failing.
Yep. Which propels the story immediately into Act 2. The Labyrinth of Schönbrunn.
Oh, here we go.
The Goldie Robes realize what the guard is channeling and kidnap him. The players must track them to the snow-covered, symmetrical hedge mazes of the palace gardens at night.
And this is where that kinetic energy grid we talked about becomes a nightmare for the players.
Yeah.
The guide says they are navigating freezing non-Euclidean hedges. What does non-Euclidean actually look like at the table? Like, how do you run that?
Good question. It means the geometry of the physical space is completely broken. A game master might describe a player walking 10 paces forward, only to find themselves standing on the ceiling of a greenhouse.
Oh.
Or they take 3 steps and somehow cover a mile. The players aren't just dodging Golden Robe security patrols either. They have to bypass Rudolph's original guardians, the Gilded Servant.
Those are the clockwork constructs powered by beating human hearts, right?
Yes. Designed centuries ago to protect the private vaults. Players need to physically bypass these mechanical nightmares while managing their sanity in a maze that defies physical laws.
It's a perfect blend of stealth, horror, and puzzle solving. And the climax of it all is Act 3, the Imperial Wake.
The big finale.
The trail leads underground into the secret extension of the Kaisergruft crypt beneath the Capuchin church. The Golden Robes have dragged the guard down there. They have the agate bowl.
And their plan is to use it to transfer Rudolph II's fragmented mind permanently into the guard's body.
Right, to create an immortal occult emperor.
But simultaneously, the Black Robes breach the crypt.
The anarchists.
Exactly. Their goal is to completely shatter the agate bowl, destroying the anchor entirely and letting the multi-sphered essence of Yog-Sothoth flood the entire first district of Vienna.
It is a complete crossfire, and the players are caught right in the middle of it.
This raises an important question, and it is the agonizing final choice the Game Master presents to the players. What do they do?
Right, there are a few options.
Do they assist the Golden Robes, allowing the transfer to happen?
Which restores an ancient mind that can lock down the city's rifts, saving everyone in the short term.
But it initiates a terrifying new era of absolute occult totalitarianism.
Or do they help the Black Robes? Smash the bowl, permanently destroy the Habsburg anchors, break the cycle of tyranny.
But let raw, unfiltered madness warp the district.
Let's all zoos lose.
Or there's a third, desperate option. A player can try to use the Imperial Majesty mechanic.
Oh, to command the crypt.
Yes. If they succeed, they can command the residual spirit of the crypt to seal the vault doors forever. It traps the entity, the cultists, and the artifact deep beneath the earth.
Wow.
But the players have to run for their lives and barely escape before the massive stone slab slides shut, burying the problem for another generation.
It is such a cinematic, impossible choice. No matter what they choose, Vienna will never be the same.
Never.
And honestly, that is the beauty of this deep dive into the Vienna Shadows TTRPG. It masterfully weaves historical facts like the Habsburg jaw, the historical obsession with alchemy, and the real-world architecture of these palaces with a profound sense of cosmic dread.
It really does.
By the time you finish running or playing this adventure, you really will never look at a European palace or like a royal portrait the same way again.
It completely rewrites the architectural language of history. But as we wrap up, there is one chilling, unanswered question drawn from the very margins of this guide that I think game masters and players should mull over.
What's that?
We know the Holy Lance was forged from meteoric iron and alloys not found on Earth. We know it was used by the Habsburgs to pin the psychic bleeding of the Danube Rift.
Right.
But the emperors were merely the wardens. They utilized these items. So the question remains, who originally forged the lance? And who or what placed it on Earth for them to find?
Oh, that is a terrifying thought to leave on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you read, keep exploring the shadows of history, and the next time you hear a waltz echoing through a grand vaulted room, maybe don't look too closely at the corners.
Yeah.
We'll catch you next time.
This concludes today's episode. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Until next time, Vienna Shadows, signing off.